Revenge doesn't always have to be pro or nuclear to be good. No, sometimes it can be petty, like you'll see in this episode of Petty Revenge. Our first one is from Past Face 1132. I used to work night shift as a nurse. One night, many years ago, I received a patient on my unit from the emergency room. My patient was accompanied by his lovely wife. When I introduced myself to them as being their nurse, I noticed immediately he was in severe pain. I reviewed his chart and orders. The doctor had not ordered any pain medications for him, just written to admit him to the unit. I called the doctor, who told me he was not going to order anything until he reviewed the patient's chart and saw them. I was confused because he did see them in the emergency room, so why the delay? I tried to ask, but he insisted he would be up to the unit soon and then hung up. I apologized to the patient and the wife, relaying the doctor's message. Several minutes later, the doctor comes up and I ask him again for any pain medications I could give, as my patient was still having severe pain. The doctor told me no, then proceeded to gather a bunch of charts, sit at the nursing station, and ignore me. I went back to the patient's room again, apologized, and told them that the doctor was here but was wanting to review the charts first before making orders. The wife, I could tell, was becoming angry, as her poor husband has been having severe pain with no relief. She asked me where the doctor was, and I gladly escorted her to the nursing station. I told the doctor that the patient's wife wanted to talk to him. I remember her ripping into him about the wait, her husband suffering, and his refusal to write for any medication. He immediately apologized and gave me orders for medications that could be given immediately. So yay for family members who can yell at doctors, because I can't. You gotta love when a doctor tries to pretend like they're God, and it takes an angry, scorned woman to actually make that doctor cave and, I don't know, maybe do a little bit of their job. This next one is by Red Phantom 000. Last week I took a flight from Athens, where I'd be visiting relatives, to London. It was a late flight, I was exhausted, and the plane was full. I was in a window seat, which I'd chosen so I could rest my head against the walls and sleep. But when I got to my row, there was a guy in my seat. He had big headphones on, and he had his head turned away from me. I tried telling him that he's in my seat. He doesn't respond. Thinking maybe he can't hear me because of the headphones, so I gently tap him on the shoulder. No reaction. I try again. Still nothing. He doesn't even turn towards me. Edited to add that he's clearly not asleep, he's sitting upright and I can see his eyes are open. I considered calling over a flight attendant to ask him to move, but there isn't one nearby and I'm not in the mood for it to be a whole thing. So I just take the middle seat and quietly fume. A few minutes later, the young woman who is sitting in the aisle seat arrives and takes her seat. She's traveling with her friend, who's sitting in the window seat in the row behind us. They're talking to each other across their seats. Then, the woman sitting in the aisle seat turns to me and asks if I can swap with her friend so they can sit together. I say sure, no problem. Now, at this point, it's important to point out that her friend is very fat. Borderline obese. Not fat shaming. I'm a heavy guy myself, but she's at least twice as wide as me. I probably would have swapped even if she hadn't been fat, but I saw a chance at revenge. As I get up to move, I see the guy sitting in my seat has turned around and realized what is about to happen. He doesn't look happy and gives me a look like he's saying, "Please don't move." I ignore him and swap seats. I spent the flight mostly with my eyes closed, as I try, and fail, to get a nap. But I do occasionally have a look at the row in front of me, and I am very satisfied to see that the fat woman in front of me is taking up nearly half of the window seat as well as her own seat, and the guy in my seat is squashed up against the wall of the plane. I hope he spent the flight thinking about how if he'd just taken his own seat, he'd have been able to swap with the fat woman, and I'd have been the one pinned against the wall. Maybe next time he'll think twice before he takes someone else's seat? The irony is no matter how many times the OP tried to get this guy's attention, he just didn't want to budge, but the second he realized that he was going to get fucked in the end, all of a sudden it seemed like that guy came to life. And our final one is from Pierce Inverartity. My 3-year-old odyssey of spite finally came together yesterday. When I was a fresh college grad in 2022, 21 female at the time, I dated an attorney for about 3 months, 27 male. He was a talented lawyer, spoke lucidly about what he did for work, and I trusted his opinions about the legal profession. So after I finished a post-grad internship, I told him my real post-grad aspiration was to get a job at a law firm as a paralegal, and work as one until I was ready to apply for law school. He literally scoffed at me and told me I would be better off as a court clerk. I don't mean to harp on court clerks at all, it is a very difficult job, but it is more administrative in nature, and from the way he said it, it was exceedingly clear he meant the comment to be derogatory. He didn't elaborate on why he said this, but it was implied. I was taken aback and really fucking hurt, but at 21 I hadn't learned to have a spine yet, so I brushed it off. A few weeks later I was working my first paralegal job. We broke up shortly after for reasons I'm sure you can guess. Anyway, he was right that I'm not going to be a paralegal. I took my LSAT last fall, scored in the 98th percentile, sent out my apps, committed to UC Berkeley Law yesterday, ranked about 90 spots above his law school, but who's counting? And I'm going to become a lawyer. He is currently blocked on LinkedIn after I was the recipient of some profile creeping from him. But today I'm going to unblock him so he can see. Definitely reminiscent of the scene from Legally Blonde where she gets the prestigious internship. Remember those hours we spent in the hot tub on spring break? Well, this is so much better! Edit, I'm blown away by the number of kind comments this post has received. Thank you so much for sharing my pettiness. I hope you're all achieving your dreams too. I think it's sad we can all probably assume that the OP's ex probably only became a lawyer to act like they're better than anybody else and hold their nose high, when in reality the OP did the ultimate fuck you to this person, and is probably gonna be a better lawyer in the long run. Alright, that's enough pettiness for the day. Well, that wraps up this episode of Petty Revenge. If you liked the video, please drop a like, share my content on all of your social media, subscribe if you haven't already, and make sure to hit that bell so you're notified every time I upload, and drop a comment down below. It really helps with the algorithm and helps new people find my channel. Thanks for watching, thanks to my patrons and super thanks contributors. Have a great day and stay safe out there.